happens to be day 20 of a very serious troop standoff between Indian and Chinese soldiers and officers in the Galwan River Valley of Ladakh. Chances are you've read about it, but we now have the first visual evidence of what this troop build-up really looks like. This is an India Today exclusive. Look closely at these pictures. They're the first images from the high-altitude Galwan River Valley in Ladakh. The first visual evidence of China's force build-up in a serious new standoff with India. Chinese durable tents, heavy-duty trucks and earth-moving machinery. Clear evidence that this isn't your everyday standoff. China plans to stretch this one out. Over 20 days, Chinese troops have raised temperatures in the Galwan River Valley in Ladakh, as well as the Pangong Lake to the south, with as many as 4 points of provocation. The satellite imagery expert who obtained these new pictures believes China is reinforcing itself.
So in recent months, along the Chinese side in the Galwan Valley, there's been 3, perhaps 4 encampments set up, including one which is probably exactly on the line of control. It's about 500 meters away from the nearest Indian encampment. And it basically, it's a small camp of maybe a platoon of not more than 10 or 12 tents. Mm-hmm. But essentially, it's sitting almost exactly on the line of actual control between Chinese forces and Indian forces.
But the images also clearly establish that India has been matching China troop for troop, bunker for bunker in the area.
Looking at, again, from Friday, there was satellite imagery of the hot springs area further south.
Yes.
And it does look as though Chinese forces had set up a patrol route that did cross the line of actual control. Although there weren't any permanent positions past that line, it looks like there was a patrol route that crossed it by a couple of 100 meters.
Yes, absolutely.
And since that, in a response to that, it looks like Indian forces have started to set up more permanent positions to sort of monitor that section of the line.
While these images establish the situation on ground, one thing remains beyond doubt for external observers. This is a COVID-pressured China clearly flexing muscle to assert more control.
China's in a position where it wants to show a lot of strength to the rest of the world and its neighbors right now, after sort of suffering some weak economic figures following the coronavirus outbreak. And especially, even when you look at Hong Kong, they've put a more aggressive hand there than ever before. So I think there is a certain message that China's looking to send to the world and to its neighbors of strength.
20 days in, this is already an unusually sustained standoff. Can India and China de-escalate, or does China have other plans? Bureau Report, India Today. So it's day 20 of this extended standoff, and we need to try and make sense of it. I've given you the backdrop of these visuals, the first satellite photos that establish the troop build-up on both sides, obviously provoked first by China. But what next? This is, after all, the biggest question. It's not just about the images, it is about what China's intentions are going forward, especially at this very difficult time for the world. Joining me live, we're very happy to have Lieutenant General Syed Ata Hasnain. He's a former Corps commander from the Kashmir Valley and one of India's most respected security analysts and commentators. Anant Krishnan has been a correspondent and editor in Beijing for many years. He's a senior journalist right now with the Hindu newspaper. Welcome, gentlemen, to the both of you. General Hasnain, I'm just going to come to you in a moment. Before that, I just wanted to list out for our viewers this evening the big questions that we're asking, and these are the questions we're going to ask our guests as well. The question that I'm asking, number one, will the India-China standoff in Ladakh escalate beyond where it is right now? Question number two, what are China's intentions with this constant force build-up that has happened day on day? Question number three, why is the Indian Army silent about the ground situation? There hasn't been a single statement from the Indian Army, and it is the Indian Army that is deployed there. Question number four, It's 20 days and counting. How much more? How long will this standoff stretch on for? Question number 5. Can India-China talks, and we know that talks are happening at various levels, can talks de-escalate this Ladakh standoff, or is there something that all of us are missing? General Hasnain, I want to ask you that question. You know, where we are on day 20 of this particular standoff. What is this really about, General? You know, what stands out to you about this? We've had longer standoffs with Chinese troops in the past. What is it about this one that has lasted 20 days and shows no signs of de-escalating?
Thank you, Shiv. Thank you for those excellent questions. Shiv, as far as irritants are concerned, with China we have Taiwan, we have WHO at the moment, Hong Kong, we have the Indian Ocean, the Indo-US Strategic Partnership, the Quad, lots more. None of these are irritants as far as India is concerned. These are all irritants as far as the Chinese are concerned. And it's been a gradual build-up over the years. Suddenly the COVID-19 situation has emerged and put China on the back foot. China is now sensing opportunities. That's my assessment, is sensing opportunities. And it's unclear as to how this is going to pan out in the future. It is preparing the ground primarily and setting a narrative for itself, and through some very strong messaging, which is starting from the neighbors.
Yes.
Nothing better than starting with a strong neighbor such as India, sending out a message to the neighbors, and then through that sending out a message to the world. It's happening through the traditional method of putting pressure on the line of actual control, setting up of camps, throwing in a lot of vehicles there, bringing in a lot of helicopter movement.
Absolutely.
And as expected always, media, a lot of media utterances. This is completely in sync with the Chinese strategy, the doctrine of 2003, which talks about 3 strategies.
Absolutely.
Media warfare, cyber warfare, psychological warfare. I expect this may not be any different to what we have seen in the past. So far, the indicators do not show anything like that. It doesn't mean that there is going to be a general war or even a border war for that matter. The indicators so far do not say anything like that. Whether it can de-escalate, we will discuss it subsequently. Whether it can de-escalate at all is a question now at the moment which we must keep asking ourselves. It is familiar thing which is happening. Not a shot has been fired on the ground.
Yes, absolutely.
But there have been injuries. There have been injuries to troops on both sides. Indian troops have been flown out to different hospitals in Leh and Chandigarh.
That's right.
This is slightly different to that extent. Are we awaiting the firing of the first shot? That is going to change everything. That is going to change everything if that happens at all.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned not a single bullet has been fired, and actually a single bullet hasn't been fired for many, many years, if not decades, between the both sides. Anant, what are you hearing? You know, you've had a chance of reporting from China. There is very clearly a lot of muscle flexing that's going on, narrative setting, mind games from the Chinese side. Where do you see this going? How long does China intend to stretch this off? We've seen far longer standoffs in the past. In Depsang, you know, it went on for over 70 days. How long do you see this one going on for? I know that's a broad question, but I'm just trying to figure out what happens next. What's the end game?
I think, Shiv, the images you just showed us are really interesting, and I think they tell us 2 things. The first is, as you put it yourself, it's very possible this is going to carry on for a long time. We've seen that in the fact that you've shown us, I think, 80-odd tents. And the second thing it tells us is the troop strength. We've seen a lot of speculation reports saying that 5,000-odd troops. This seems to suggest it's far less than that. But having said that, Shiv, I would agree with General Hasnain's last point, where if we go by past precedent, and so far that's all we have to go on, that we do see these acts of brinksmanship that ultimately get resolved. But as you said, I think one thing that's different this time around is seeing it simultaneously at different spots, not just 3 spots in the western sector, but also in North Sikkim. We haven't seen that before, and I think that's somewhat unusual. Having said that, we do have channels in place. I think we've done remarkably well to ensure such past incidents have been de-escalated, even though, of course, in Doklam in 2017, it took 73 days. But these channels, I think, are far more resilient than most people are aware of. And we have to wait and see if the channels work this time around, too.
General Hasnain, when you mentioned that not a single bullet has been fired, yet we have seen the reports of violent brawls, injuries that have happened. I'm just curious to know, sir, how is it that no, weapons have been fired? If tempers have been flying, and there have been fisticuffs on the ground, as someone who has operated in these areas, what is that limit of discipline that miraculously no bullets have been fired, sir?
Shiv, I have commanded my unit almost in the same area in eastern Ladakh, although there were different times, almost 25 years ago. But there's no doubt about it that the moment to peg in our memories is actually 1967.
Yes.
The Nathula incident, which if you remember, there were mass casualties, a very large number of casualties on the Chinese side and also a very large number of casualties on the Indian side. That somehow seems to have remained in the memory of the PLA. The second time that the bullets were fired after that was only, what I'm told, is only 1975. In the Sundarongchu incident in 1987, not a bullet was fired, although we had a long standoff. Similar thing happened with Doklam, and this seems to have become a virtual doctrine as far as the Chinese are concerned. They think that this is the way messaging can be done. And intent can be shown that they are serious. They do not want to resolve the line of actual control.
Yes.
Because they want to keep the Indian army, the Indian strategic community and Indian leadership completely pegged to the Himalayan frontier. Because by that they think that they keep our attention away from the Indian Ocean, which is where the main threat to the Chinese lies. And therefore they do not want to have any intent of war.
Absolutely.
If there is a bullet fired, if there are any other pyrotechnics used here and there, it is going to lead to an escalation.
Yes.
The Chinese are careful about that. And they are ensuring that this does not happen. This will carry on. It will pan out for the next couple of days. It will de-escalate as long as India has the strength, which it does, to make sure that it holds on.
Yeah, because by all evidence and by all reports, India is digging in its heels, is very, powerfully defending itself. I'll ask you about that in a little more detail, General Hasnain. But before that, Anant, we do know that India and China enjoy a pretty robust, tried and tested border talks mechanism, which has helped many times in the past. There is, there are reports that talks are happening even now at the unit level on the borders. Are these talks not going to help de-escalate things? Is this current situation beyond the impact of those border talks?
I think, Shiv, the mechanisms were really tested in 2017 in Doklam, which was in some ways far more complicated than this current standoff because it was happening on Bhutanese territory, which was added a whole other level of complication. So I think that really stress the mechanisms to the limit. But I think one point, Shiv, that's different from Doklam this time around is so far we haven't seen the sort of verbal jousting from China yet. It's been, besides the statement from the foreign ministry, it's nothing like what we saw in 2017, where we had daily very harsh statements coming out of Beijing, even referencing 1962. We haven't seen that as of yet. And I think that leaves window open for de-escalation. I think Doklam that kind of dragged on the situation for much longer because I think China boxed itself into a corner that time around.
General Hasnain, there is, the evidence suggests, and, from what we've been hearing informally from the army is that, for every move to build up troops and send in reinforcements, the Indian army has been matching that. Not an inch of space is being provided. They've been matching them bunker for bunker, troop for troop, truck for truck, tent for tent. How difficult is this, General Hasnain? You've commanded troops in this area. It is widely perceived that India has a disadvantage as far as terrain and infrastructure is concerned. How difficult is it to hold ground, and actually defend against the very aggressive Chinese in this area?
Very good question, Anant. Shiv, may I suggest say that it is no longer 1987. I think sometime after 2003, the entire China study group and the recommendations of that, the overall infrastructure capability in Ladakh has really improved.
Yes.
The coming of the 14 Corps headquarters, as you remember, earlier it was 15 Corps which used to manage this. 14 Corps headquarters coming there has become slicker, smaller areas to control, although distances are still very, very vast. the DBO road, the road to DBO from Darbuk.
Yes.
Apparently, what media reports say, it seems to be a major irritant to the Chinese.
Right.
And that they are hell-bent on making sure that further development of infrastructure does not take place in this area. But having said that, let me say, in this season, in the month of May, June, and until about September, October, this area is free of snow. And we have relatively better capability in terms of infrastructure as far as movement is concerned.
Right.
And we have more troops. We have more troops in Ladakh today. We don't have to fly in troops from anywhere today. We don't have to move troops from the valley anywhere. So the risk, the aspect is much, much reduced today. I think Indian commanders, Indian military commanders can be much bolder today. They can take their decisions, which are backed entirely by the government of India. And I think it's a far call from what was there 25 years ago. Today, we are in a far, far better situation to be able to defend, and not only defend, to be able to actually achieve whatever India is intending to militarily achieve in this area.
I think that's a great point to end this discussion on. Indian commanders are in a much better position to defend. The perceived disadvantages of the past have, largely been papered over. Things are much better right now. And of course, there's a great deal of support as well. India matching China on this troop build-up. This is not the this is not the pushover India, perhaps, of the past when India and China have come face to face. Thank you very much, Anand Krishnan and Lieutenant General Atta Hasnain, for joining me on this very enlightening discussion. We still have to see where this troop standoff is going and what China's true intentions really are. We know what they want to do, but where is it actually going to end? We've got some breaking news coming in now.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.